Well, it's the 4th of March 2017. A very good Saturday evening to all our viewers. This is the weekend edition of Primetime News. I'm Joel Otskun joining you this Saturday evening. Let's start off with a look at the headlines.
OHCHR says Sri Lanka has made slow progress in reconciliation and calls for a hybrid court. MP Vijitha Herath criticized the appointment of committees.
මේකෙන් පෙන්නන්නේ වත්මන් අගමැතිවරයා ඔහු කතාවෙන් විවිධ කමිටු ආයතන පිහිටෙව්වට තවම බැරි වෙලා තියෙනවා රටේ මහ පොළවේ මිනිස්සුන්ට දැනෙන යමක් කරන්න.
President rejects calls for hybrid courts and foreign judges. 3 arrested in a raid in Matakulia. Pakistani national arrested at the BIA with heroin worth over 50 million. China's defense spending in 2017 to rise by around 7%.
Starting off with our top story this evening. A report released by the Office of the UN Human Rights Commissioner says that there's a risk of the momentum towards lasting peace, reconciliation and stability being derailed because of the slow pace of transitional justice in Sri Lanka and the lack of a comprehensive strategy to address accountability for past crime.
The report, which assesses the progress made in the implementation of human rights in the country, is to be presented at the 34th session of the UN Human Rights Council. The report notes that there is a visible change of policy direction in addressing past human rights violations and that the government of Sri Lanka has advanced on constitutional reforms and showcased some positive developments on the broader human rights agenda. The report has put forward several recommendations for the progress of justice and reconciliation in the country. Its recommendations state to adopt legislation establishing a hybrid court which should include international judges, defense lawyers, prosecutors and investigators to investigate allegations of violations and abuses of international human rights law and violations of international humanitarian law and provide it with the resources necessary to enable it to try those responsible promptly and effectively. The report recommends to enact legislation to criminalize war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide and enforced disappearances without statutes of limitation and enact modes of criminal liability, in particular command or superior responsibility. It also recommends to replace the Prevention of Terrorism Act by legislation that adheres to the best international practices. The report goes on to say that the government has created several ad hoc bodies, including the Secretariat of Coordinating Reconciliation Mechanisms and the Office for National Unity and Reconciliation, and several technical working groups tasked with drafting blueprints for the accountability and reconciliation mechanisms to be established. It says that these bodies, however, are yet to present a sufficiently convincing or comprehensive transitional justice strategy to overcome the legacy of mistrust and skepticism left by a number of inconclusive ad hoc commissions and procedures. Such a strategy is of critical importance to maximize the synergies between the various reform processes.
Well, we are now prepared to have a more in-depth understanding on the UN Human Rights Commissioner's report. Let's cross over to Studio 3 where we have Chaturanga Haparachi with the details. Chaturanga, over to you.
Thank you, Joel. As we mentioned in our news bulletin, the 34th session of the UN Human Rights Council is currently taking place in Geneva, and a Sri Lankan delegation is there at the moment to reiterate to them the steps our country has taken to ensure reconciliation, non-recurrence, truth-seeking and reparation in terms of what has happened or the past incidents that have transpired in the country. Now, we are in discussion of what this delegation is going to do, and I'm going to give you a brief understanding of what this delegation is trying to or aiming to do at the UN Human Rights Council. Now, the report in question, the report that we are talking about right now, will be submitted to this Human Rights Council on the 22nd of March. The delegation that is in Geneva at the moment representing Sri Lanka includes the Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, Mangala Samaraweera, Dr. Jayampathy Wickramaratne, Mr. Mano Tittawalla, who is the Secretary General of the Secretariat for Coordinating Reconciliation and Reconciliation Mechanisms, rather. Now, this particular commission or this particular secretariat has been mentioned in this report that we are discussing as one of the ad hoc institutions that have been put in place by the government in this whole process of ensuring reconciliation in our country. That is also something that we should keep in mind. And of course, the delegation also includes Ambassador Ravinatha Ariyasinghe. Now, As I mentioned to you, this report will be playing a huge role in the whole process of what's going to take place in time to come with regard to the human rights issue in our country. And the task of the Sri Lankan delegation, who is going to be speaking on behalf of the country, would be to tell these people, tell the UN Human Rights Commission or the Council what steps Sri Lanka is going to take. They have to tell them once again what progress that we have made in terms of reconciliation, in terms of truth-seeking, in terms of reparation, and in terms of every overall ensuring the human rights of the people of our country and putting a stop to what happened in the past. Now, in this context, when you go into minute details, they will have to give them details of how they are going to do it. Now, in terms of this hybrid courts issue, an issue that has been boomeranging every time into the incident when the UN Human Rights Council is concerned. Now we know that the President has very strongly said that there will be no international judges operating in our country in terms of this whole process. So when such things happen, this delegation who is in Geneva will have to tell the Council as to what substitute steps will be taken on behalf of the Sri Lankans, on behalf of us and the country. So in all of this, they will have to be able to tell them that the commissions that have been appointed by the government of Sri Lanka to ensure the 4 points I have been talking to you about are in fact not ad hoc, and that they are doing the tasks that have been vested with them, and they will have to, as I said, tell them the substitutions that we will have to do if we are not allowing hybrid courts to come into the country, if we are not allowing international judges to come into the country. We will have to tell them what our steps are going to be. There are going to be several stages of the UN Human Rights Council taking place throughout the year, and we will have to wait and see what this delegation is doing. And on behalf of everyone here at News First, we have to tell you that the UN human rights issue has been an issue that we have been monitoring. So we will bring you the details of the UN Human Rights Council when it happens. The latest, we will be bringing it to you. I'm going to hand it back to the studio. Joel?
Well, thank you very much, Chaturanga, for that detailed analysis on the report. Well, moreover, newspapers reported today that a new body strengthened with more powers than the Board of Investment is to be established to take charge of foreign investment and tourism. The Daily Mirror reported that the proposed body is to be monitored by the Prime Minister. According to the paper, the objective behind the establishment of this body is to enable foreign investors to start up their projects within a quick space of time. The Daily Mirror says that the government is to study the models of Thailand, Singapore and Malaysia, which have established similar institutions. The new body is to be given the special task of increasing passenger movements at the Mattala and Katunayak international airports within the coming years. Civil and political activists reiterates that several institutions such as this were established in the recent past and that a number of these institutions are illegal. An agency for development was established under the Development Special Provisions Act. Passing this act was challenged as the act was defeated in all provincial councils. However, Newsfirst revealed on several occasions how an institution named the Agency for Development had been established under the Ministry of Development Strategy and International Trade, and how a person by the name of Mangalayapa had been appointed as the managing director of this agency. Our revelations included how a chairman had been appointed to the Southern Development Authority, which was made null by the Divinaguma Act, and how this individual had intervened in transactions pertaining to the Hambantota report. In this backdrop, we reported how the foreign investments on government securities had dropped in the recent past. The foreign investments on government securities, which stood at 453.4 billion rupees in February 2015, reduced to 196.1 billion rupees in February this year.
When this government came into power, the government established various institutions to strengthen reconciliation in the country, but none of these have worked. The UN Human Rights Council is saying that they are not satisfied. The government intervenes to a great extent to sell off the national wealth of this country. Various committees were appointed to attract foreign investors, saying that they will come into the country. There was an economic management committee. They established various other institutions, but there were no investments. What we can see through all this is that the Prime Minister has been unable to do things that the people at the ground level feel. They are trying to establish an institution that has more power than the BOI. The Prime Minister issued a special Gazette notification prior to this to appoint a Super Minister. He has taken a step back. Now he is trying to create institutions over the BOI. They are establishing institutions and they have not been able to do anything substantial for the development of the country. They appointed their affiliates and their relatives to the Economic Management Committee back then. That committee has more power than the Cabinet of Ministers now. So they are trying to establish another institute and appoint some more friends to that as well. They are supporting their friends and they have not been able to develop the country. The biggest problem that this government of consensus faces at present is the fact that there are people who have been appointed by winning elections in just one district working over the president who was elected by the whole country. Those decisions are good to control a certain political party. Within the UNP, there were several instances where committees were appointed. The Prime Minister will be able to decide whether that is good for the UNP. If you try to appoint committees and govern the country, if you decide to appoint affiliates instead of the nepotism that was prevailing in the past, we will be reprimanded from the UN as well as from the country. If the support is provided to the president, who was the person who was directly appointed to govern the country will be able to reap the benefits of the consensus government. If not, the country will go back to the same people who incite racism, nationalism and various other things, saying that the government of consensus cannot run the country.
The President Maithripala Sirisena says that he vehemently rejects the UN Human Rights Commissioner's call to form a hybrid court consisting of foreign judges. During an inspection of the Sri Lanka Air Force camp in Palali today, President Sirisena said that he is not prepared to govern the country based on the opinions of the NGOs and file charges against the security forces.
අපේ ආරක්ෂක හමුදාවලට විරුද්ධව තමයි විදේශීය විනිසුරන් ගෙනල්ලා.
They are calling on us to file charge sheets against the armed forces with the involvement of foreign judges. I have made it clear to them that we are not prepared to do that. There are citizens who do not fulfill their responsibilities and their duties. They are engaged in spreading misinformation regarding the security forces after obtaining massive amounts of dollars and pounds via NGOs. I am not prepared to govern according to the whims of the NGOs and persons with international engagements. I am not prepared to bring charge sheets against the three armed forces as called for by them. I am not prepared to try the three armed forces according to their whims. That needs to be made clear. Therefore, I make it clear that I will fulfill all my duties and responsibilities.
ඒ අය කියන විදිහට මම ත්‍රිවිධ හමුදාට විරුද්ධව නඩු අහන්න මම ලෑස්ති නැහැ. ඒක මම බොහොම පැහැදිලිව කියන්නට ඕන. ඒ නිසා මම සෑම විටම ඒ වගකීම සහ යුතුයකම ඉටු කරන බව ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නට ඕනේ.
The President visited the Security Forces headquarters, Jaffna, and inquired into the well-being of the military personnel stationed there. The President thereafter visited the Palali Air Force Base and engaged in a cordial discussion with the airmen at the base. The first regional officer of the Tell the President program commenced at the Northern Province Governor's office today. The President said that a new program will be implemented for the development of the Northern Province and added that he will visit the North accompanied by ministers and MPs once a month and expedite the development of the North.
Minister Lakshman Kirala shared these views on the report on the UN Human Rights Commission.
UN says that Sri Lanka's accountability mechanism has shown slow progress and has called for hybrid courts. As leader of the House, what do you have to say?
They are not aware of the present status of the country. Matters pertaining to 2 decades cannot be addressed in 1.5 years. They must understand that if they make undue influence on us, there is a possibility that the country would lose all that it has achieved. This does not need to be a race. This will be done according to the needs of the country. What did they do in the Middle East? They destroyed stable countries.
Meanwhile, State Minister Lakshman Kirala shared these views during an event in Mathura today.
මේ මහ බැංකුව අධිපතිවරයා අයින් කරේ මෛත්‍රීපාල සිරිසේන ජනාධිපතිතුමා.
The governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka was removed by President Maithripala Sirisena. He did not listen to others. He made the correct decision. There was a call made for the involvement of international judges. The UN Human Rights Chief says that we need foreign judges. Before 24 hours lapsed, the President said that there will be no involvement of foreign judges. He had a backbone to say so. There were many who said don't remove the Central Bank governor. But he removed the Central Bank governor. Some became afraid when the commission was appointed. We called for recommendations for the appointments of the Commission. We made the recommendations because we cannot allow public funds to be skimmed. These are the funds of the people. The Commission was appointed and the investigations are taking place. If you read the papers, you will realize the scale of the corruption that had taken place. Those accountable must be punished, and that is why the Presidential Commission was appointed. We can see that it functions independently.
ජනාධිපති කොමිසම ඔප්පත් කරා. අපි බලාගෙන ඉන්නවා. ඒක අවංකව වැඩ කරනවා අපිට පේනවා.
Allegations raised that a fraud had taken place during the bond issue of the central bank. Several parties request the president to enact the law against the governor of the central bank, at the time Arjuna Mahendran. A three-member committee comprising of lawyers linked to the UNP appointed by the Prime Minister to look into the matter. Requests made to remove Mahendran from his position. The president decides not to extend the tenure of the governor of the central bank. COPE report with regard to the bond issue released. Connections between Arjuna Mahendran and perpetual treasuries revealed. At present, a presidential commission of inquiry appointed to investigate the matter. President provides special instructions to the Secretary of the Ministry of Telecommunication and Digital Infrastructure with regard to the appointment of the CEO of ICTA. Suggestions made to appoint Muhuntan Kanage to the post of CEO, not heeding the instructions of the President. The President advises the Secretary of the Ministry once again to appoint Kanagi only as the Director of ICTA. However, Muhundan Kanage appointed as the CEO of ICTA.
Welcome back to the news. Now, 3 persons were arrested in a surprise raid that took place early this morning in Kadiranawata, Matakulia.
The raid was carried out to arrest members of criminal gangs in Matakulia and surrounding areas in order to curb drug peddling and other illegal activities. 200 police officers, the police STF and intelligence took part in this raid. 3 arrests were made and one of them was an army deserter.
A Pakistani national who attempted to smuggle heroin worth over 50 million rupees into the country was arrested at the Bandar Rank International Airport today.
Police said that the Pakistani national had come to Sri Lanka from Pakistan via Doha, Qatar. The weight of the contraband was 5.5 kilograms. The contraband was discovered concealed in a secret compartment of the suspect's luggage. The Police Narcotic Bureau said the suspect was arrested based on a tip-off. The Bureau said that the method used by the suspects to smuggle the heroin is one completely different to the methods followed by other smugglers. A senior official at the Bureau said that heroin was concealed inside a rubber sheet placed at the bottom of the luggage.
Now, a blaze ripped through a leading textile store in the heart of Maragama this afternoon.
The fire had broken out from the first floor of the 5-storied building and thereafter spread to the entire building. No casualties were reported and 3 units from the Kotte Fire Brigade were dispatched to douse the fire. Police believe that a power surge may have been the cause for the fire at the textile store. Police added that the fire was doused with the assistance of the locals and the Kotte Fire Brigade.
In some tragic news this evening, a 3-wheeler which was travelling on a footbridge across the Dadaruya along the Vallava-Paddava road was washed away by a strong current early this morning. The incident that took place in close proximity to the Lunukada Valla temple claimed 2 lives.
A 3-wheeler with 4 persons from Anodawa village on board had been travelling towards Veerakatia at around 3 this morning. With the torrential downpour, the Dadaruya had broken its banks and it was at the time that the 3-wheeler had travelled on the footbridge, resulting in this tragedy. The victims were 61-year-old H.M. Gamini Herat and his 14-year-old daughter H.M. Rashmi Navodya. The 2 others who were travelling with them had evaded death.
The three-wheeler stalled when the floodwaters rose. One person jumped onto the causeway and 3 of us fell into the water. The driver also jumped off. We don't know what happened to him. I tried to pull the girl out of the three-wheeler, but I couldn't. I went inside the water. When I was being washed away, I clung onto a fallen tree.
The bodies of the father and daughter were discovered this evening. The three-wheeler which was washed away was later discovered, and the acting magistrate of Kurunegala, Felician Pereira, conducted the magisterial inquiry. The acting magistrate ordered for the bodies to be directed to the Kurunegala JMO for inspection and thereafter to be released to the relatives.
And in some local sports this evening, Janaka Hemantha Kumara from the Sri Lanka Navy won the second leg of the Sri Lanka Yafo cycle race known as the Guan Hamuda Papadi Savaria 2017. The race is organised to mark the 66th anniversary of the Sri Lanka Yafos.
This year's race is the 18th such to be organised, and the first leg, which was flagged off from Colombo yesterday, concluded in Puttlam. The second leg took place following the presentation of awards to the winners of the first leg. The second leg of 138.5 kilometres commenced from Puttlam and reached Vaunia, passing Palavia, Karulagasawa, Nochiagama, Lahayagama, Rambeva and Medavachia. Janaka Hemantha Kumara from Sri Lanka Navy won the second leg of the Sri Lanka Air Force cycle race, while Jeevan Jayasinghe from the Sri Lanka Air Force came in second. Navin Ruchira from the Sri Lanka Air Force, who came in third yesterday, was placed third today as well.
Minister Sajith Premadasa provided over the event to inaugurate construction of the southern Kandamula Bridge in Walasmula yesterday.
When you take a look at the country, it is clear that the people have been given freedom. There is freedom of speech. In the past, if someone came to Walasmula for a meeting and criticized the government, what would have transpired? The answer comes in the form of bullets. At local government elections, we too were confronted with bullets. The persons who launched the attack calls us over the phone later on and asks us if any incident had taken place.
බොරුවට අපිට දුරකථන ඇමතුම් දීලා අහනවා අයියේ මොන හරි සිද්ධියක් වුණාද අයියට වෙඩි තිබ්බද අර තොත්ත බබා තමයි කෝල් කරලා අහන්නේ බේබි අහනවා මගෙන් අයියේ මොන හරි වුණාද.
The number of bullets that were directed at us were enough to bring down an electricity post. This is because we criticized the government. The murderous governance that operated in the past is no more. There are no thugs and ruffians.
අද චණ්ඩිල වණ්ඩිල නැහැ. අද පතෝලේ වම්බොට්ටෝ වැටකොළුව නැහැ. අද ආමි ජිනේල නැහැ.
These persons were created by the rulers of the past.
මේ ඔක්කොම නිර්මාණය කරේ පහුගිය කාලේ පාලකයෝ.
Meanwhile, Minister of Finance Ravi Karunayaka attended an event to declare open a new restaurant in Crow Island.
Ministers Arjuna Ranatunga and Faisal Mustafa, as well as Major General Shavendra Silva, were among those who graced the occasion.
This place is one where a regular family can come and enjoy. What we need is to create the ability of obtaining things that are abroad at a reasonable price over here. There isn't such an environment even in Colombo. I am thankful for the investors for coming and partnering in this venture. As a new government, we had greater focus on the development of Colombo. In the past, we witnessed unnecessary incidents taking place in these locations. This environment paves the way for the people to come here and exercise in the evening and enjoy. While businesses come together and develop the area, employment opportunities are also generated.
The 2017 edition of the Youth Speak Forum will take place on the 11th of March. A media briefing to elaborate on the event took place today.
Youth Speak Forum 2017 is expecting to draw a 300-plus delegation from all across the country and will consist of students from universities and schools.
So the main objective of the Youth Speak Forum is for the youth to come up with their own ideas, and as youth in Sri Lanka to decide how we can actually shape this country and actually help this country in terms of achieving the sustainable development.
In sports, we take a look at what took place on day one of the school big match weekend. The 83rd Battle of the Saints, played between St. Joseph's College, Colombo and St. Peter's College, Bambalapitiya, ended in a draw today. Winning the toss and batting first, St. Joseph's College posted 205 all out, to which St. Peter's responded with 188 for 8 declared. The lads from Dali Road posted 163 runs for the loss of 7 in their second essay, while the lads from Bambalapitiya posted 100 runs on the board without losing any wicket at the close of play. Today was day one of the 88th Battle of the Maroons, played between Ananda College, Colombo and Nalanda College, Colombo. Played at the SSC grounds, Ananda College invited Nalanda College to take first lease of the wicket. Nalanda College posted 144 runs all out in their first essay. In response, Ananda College posted 155 for the loss of 5 at stumps on day one. The big match encounter between the Hindu colleges of Jaffna and Bambalapitiya ended in a draw today. Played in Colombo, batting first, the home side posted 287 all out, to which the lads from Jaffna responded with 279 all out for their first essay. Taking to bat again, the home side posted 229 runs all out for their second essay.